Sometimes I just get out in the pressure. I'm thinking about the shot, and then sometimes you look around you, and I need to do this more often and realize where you're at. There's been numerous times where I've been like, I want to get this shot, and then I calm down and look, and I realize, man, I'm in a gorgeous location. I need to just take a break and just look around and enjoy. If I'm not mistaken, me and you were together one morning photographing bear, and it just hit me all of a sudden that, man, look where we're at and everything. And I just, it's almost an overwhelming joy just comes over you, peace. And the only thing it don't happen often, but when I'm out in nature, it seems like it happens all the time. I get this overwhelming joy, especially when I'm not thinking about it or overthinking it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Wild Shutter Podcast. This is our first episode. It's a podcast where I'm hoping to invite on wildlife photographers where we can talk about some of their favorite images. And I'm really excited today to have my first guest be a good friend of mine, Joseph Cooper. I've had the privilege to shoot with him out in the field on several occasions, and we always have a good time. And I've asked Joseph to come on here today to talk to us about some of his favorite images that he's made, and we want to learn a little bit more about him as well. So, Joseph, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And this is going to be a video podcast. This is on YouTube, and it'll be on other audio-only platforms as well. But I encourage you to watch the YouTube so you can see Joseph's awesome photography. So, Joseph, we want to start with a picture that you made that I have always loved. Whenever I think about you as a photographer, I think about this image, and I'm referring to that beautiful bear cub image that you made. Can you tell us a little bit about the opportunity that you had to take it?
Yeah, that's one of those pictures that stands out, not only because I like the picture, but the way I took the picture. It really shouldn't have happened. That trip it was 2 years ago when I took the image, and I was really sick. I was supposed to went to the Smokies for like 3-4 days, and I thought it was COVID, honestly, or the flu. Ends up it was neither, thankfully. But I had to delay the trip, and I almost missed the entire trip because of being sick. Ended up going and getting tested for COVID and everything, and didn't think it was going to happen. And everything come back negative, and thankfully, like 2 days into when I should have been up there, I started feeling a little bit better. And I told my wife, I said, look, I'm forcing myself to get up and go. I said, I've got this reserved. I got a campsite reserved. I feel better even though I'm not near 100%. I know there's cubs around. I want to go up there and just see what happens. And so I did. I got up, and the next morning I still didn't feel great, but I said, hey, I'm going to pack everything up. The campsite's still up there. So I drove up there. The whole time on the way up, I was scared to death because I was thinking, man, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get up here. This is a horrible mistake. But in the back of my mind, I kept saying, you never know until you try. You get up there and get nothing. Hey, you tried, no harm. As long as you don't get too sick, you'll be fine. So I get up and I set camp up by myself. The people that were going to go with me backed out because of me being sick. So I ended up being by myself and walking and looking for a individual mother bear that we both know. And
can I stop you there just for a second? So You said set camp up. Whenever you're out photographing, what does that mean to you? Setting camp up. What's your
this time like? It was setting up a tent, setting up the chair. I had to go buy some firewood. I had to make sure everything was squared away for when I got back that night. And this was probably around 3 o'clock in the evening. This was late when I got in. I wanted to make sure when I got out of the woods, I could eat dinner then just go straight to bed since I knew I wasn't feeling well. But I thought, hey, I can do this as quickly as possible and then maybe go straight to the woods, which is what ended up happening.
I love that. You're more manly than I am. I don't tent camp. I need the four walls.
I was nervous. Being sick, it was really slower than I was hoping to, because I was hoping I could throw the tent up and I'll be out of here in a minute. And, every time I'd set something up, I'd have to sit down and take a break. And because I still wasn't feeling great. But it worked out. And that night I ended up going and finding that particular mother bear and got some other images of them playing together, the cubs, and a few other images of her that worked really well. But I knew the next morning, I said, I'm getting up and I'm coming in here first thing in the morning, and I'm going to stay here all day with her. And that's what I did. I got up early. I found her again. I stayed in there until dark that night, and still not feeling well, sitting there in the woods. And right before dark is when I got that picture. The cub actually went out on a dogwood limb, and it was like one of those things where time stopped for a second, and like, oh my goodness. And I picked up the camera and took the pictures. And about that time, the cub fell out of the tree, which thankfully was only like 10 foot up in the air, and hits the ground and bounces and squeaks. And Mama Bear, of course, comes charging and looking around the whole area and realizes he's fine and everything. They go on about their business. But I knew at that moment, I got it. I think I got it. And I picked the camera up, and sure enough, there was a shot. And I knew immediately, I was like, this is the shot I was meant to take this weekend. If I'd stayed at home feeling sorry for myself and sick, I would never have gotten this image. So I look at that kind of a special image just for everything I went through to get it. I was not feeling well, and then just every little thing, having to be out there all day. And it worked out, of course. It's one of my favorite images.
Well, it's awesome because so many times it's not as much the image as it's the story behind it and what it takes to get it. And this is an incredible image, even if there was no story behind it, but then to go through the adversity that you went through, it makes it even more special.
Yeah, I appreciate it, yeah. I feel the same way.
I really love the light in it. It's just so bright and vibrant, and it feels like spring. So perfect
yeah,
shot.
That's the same for me.
So tell us a little bit about like how you got started in photography. What influenced this hobby for you?
That's a long story. There's a lot of different variables in that story. I always was big into wildlife and nature. My dad had us out when I was little hiking, and he always has fishing and doing all kinds of stuff outdoors. So there was always the love of nature and wildlife there. But I think one of the big turning points was when I was in college. I ended up getting a summer intern job at the U.S. Forest Service. And I worked 2 summers in an area not too far from my house. And I did a lot of wilderness work and trail maintenance and stuff like that. And through that, I saw a lot of cool things. I had a lot of bear encounters and some really gorgeous landscapes and just a lot of cool stuff. And I remember coming home and telling myself, man, if I had a picture of what I saw today, people would be, blown away by what I saw. Because I would come home and tell them, and they never would be as excited as I figured they would be. I would come home and talk about this bear encounter, and they would be like, oh, that's cool, whatever, and I was like, no, you don't understand. It was a mama bear with cubs. We saw her in the woods and everything, and nobody ever seemed to get what I was saying. So I told myself, I want to take a picture of this, and when I get back, they'll finally see what I'm saying. And there's a few things that stick out. One time I was walking on a river where I worked at the time, and we come around a bend. I'll never forget it. We come around the bend. The sun was shining down this valley. The river was real calm. Everything was just peaceful. And there was a big red-tailed hawk sitting up over the river. And I remember I stopped and I thought, man, this right here would be an incredible picture. And this was before I even thought about, taking photography up. And those little things sort of stuck with me. Yeah, I had no idea. I had no clue. And my then girlfriend, now she's my wife, I talked to her about, I'd like to get a camera. I'd like to get something more than just a point and shoot, and she actually bought me one of my first cameras, and so that sort of really started it there, and it just took off from there. And it slowly has gotten I don't know if she regrets that or not after all the money I've spent since then. The other thing, I guess the big thing that stood out, and this was after I was really doing photography, but when my dad passed in 2019, I kind of lit a fire under myself and said, hey, realized how short life was at that point. And I was doing photography, but I was like, man, I want to do more. I want to get out and enjoy life more, because these are the places I enjoy going anyways. So I kind of told myself in 2019 that, look, we're going to take this to a different level maybe and try to take this more serious and travel to some places I've always wanted to go to. And I think since then I've really kept myself at a pretty steady pace of trying to make it, I wouldn't say a higher priority, but just enjoying life more in general. And that's a way to enjoy life for me, to get up and spend time with wildlife and spend time in nature. So, yeah. Oh,
absolutely. It's a way to kind of escape sometimes. There's a lot of pressures, and I know you're a dad, you're a family man, and it's not that those are bad things. Those are great things. And it's great to take your family with you too, and to get out into nature and just get away from the busyness of life. Yeah,
exactly. When things get stressful, it just seems like that's the go-to. If I can just, spend some time out in the woods, and it just helps me tremendously with stress.
Do you find yourself thinking about photography and a shoot or your next shoot constantly throughout the day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every year I get a planner. Constantly. I get a planner every year, and I go across the whole year, and I'm like, oh, these are the weekends I know I can do something. This will be when the white-tailed deer may be rutting, or the elk will be rutting, or spring bear cubs. And I go ahead and plan the whole year vaguely out, and it could change as time goes, but I constantly think about every little thing I know I have coming up. Right now I have 2 trips coming up in the next month, and that's all I'm thinking about is prepping for those trips and being excited about finally getting spring weather and getting back outside and being in nature again. So yeah, it's constantly, it's all day long.
Just keeps you going.
Yeah, exactly.
So another picture that you selected as one of your favorites was of a whitetail deer. Could you tell us a little bit about this image? It's a beautiful image.
Yeah, that was from last November. I've been photographing deer for a few years now, and I've never gotten to me a portrait that I really just enjoyed. And this last year when I went, I said, I want to get a good whitetail portrait, something that I can just be very proud of it. If I want to print it out, I can print it out. I could submit to a magazine, anything just to have like a good portrait. Except I got tons of portraits on the last trip, which is amazing. But this one really stood out to me. And what else stood out to me is I made a new friend on that trip. I'll give a shout out to him. His name's Justin Childers, Justin Childers Photography. Look him up on Facebook and Instagram both. There's some incredible work. But he reached out to me, and we ended up going together and looking for deer. And it's something he had never really done much of. So it was my opportunity to sort of take him and show him some of the things that I'd seen before and places I'd been to. And through that, made a good friend. And that picture, it was kind of funny because we'd been chasing deer for 3-4 days, and this was probably the second to last day of the trip. And this particular buck in the picture, was walking and chasing 6 does. And at one point, he crossed the road and went to this really high grass. It's almost as tall as I am, and I'm a tall guy. And you could barely see him, but I thought, man, if I could get a clear shot of him in this stuff, this would be incredible. And being taller than everybody else that was around there actually was a benefit because I could see the one clearing in the grass, and I could see the deer turn towards that clearing. And immediately I took off in that direction thinking, oh, this is my chance. Everybody else was too short to see it. Everybody else was standing there, thinking, oh man, what's going on? I ran over there, picked up the camera, took the shot, and it was like maybe 30 seconds worth of, maybe taking an image, and then he turned and went back into the thick grass. And I immediately knew, I looked at the camera and said, I got it. I got the one clearing. I just remember the other guys saying, if I was taller, I would have seen the same thing, and we all would have been over there together. But it was one of those, you didn't have time to sort of react. You just reacted, and you saw, it's like, oh, this is going to happen. You just jumped up and took the picture. And so yeah, it stood out to me. As soon as I took it, I was like the favorite shot I took of that trip. And I look back on that picture a lot, and it's just a good whitetail portrait in my opinion.
Yeah, I like the foreground elements in it.
Yeah, it just sums up to me. It's fall. It looks like a fall picture. This high grass, and I don't know. I really enjoy everything about it.
Yeah, that's great. And sometimes I'm taller too, and you're always trying to get low. But, sometimes being a little bit tall is an advantage, right?
It paid off that day, yeah.
And it's also all about time in the field, being around these animals, kind of having an idea of what they might end up doing and putting yourself in a position where you're not chasing them, but you're positioned in a way where you've predicted where they might end up going, and that gets the shot. You might not get 1,000 shots, but you might get that one shot that you're really proud of, like this one.
I might miss 99 opportunities standing in one spot hoping the animal shows up there, but that one time it shows up out of 100, that's the shot. And it's always my favorite shot typically because patience and everything, and you predicted it right. It all pays off. It don't happen often, which sometimes it doesn't work out at all. But in that opportunity, that day it worked out really well.
Something that I mentally deal with whenever I go on a big trip like this where you're spending money, you're spending time away from your family, do you feel pressure to perform, even though you're only performing for yourself, but do you feel pressure to come up with an image like this? And how does that affect the shoot?
The short answer is yes. Almost every time. I wouldn't say every single time, but most of the time, if it's a big trip like this where you've taken time off work and you've really scheduled things, there's a little bit of pressure. And if you don't get it, it's not like you're not going to have a good time. And I mean, it's all just fun in general, but there's always that in the back of your mind, like, I want to get this shot, and I put all this time in, I'm going to put all these hours in the field, I want to get the shot. And usually I find that if I finally get a shot, it may not be a good shot, immediately that pressure is like, it goes away instantly. And then it seems like after that, that's when all the best shots happen, is when I stop thinking about overthinking, and I wish I could get myself in that mentality more often. The older I get, the more it seems to be where I am more relaxed, but there's always just that little bit of pressure when you first get to a place and you want to rush things, and that's not how it ever usually happens. with wildlife, for sure.
It doesn't produce the best results, but
no.
But we're all guilty of it, I think. But
Yeah.
whenever you get that shot that you're talking about here, and like you said, from that point, you can just relax, and it seems like things start to come to you. And, that's, I think, a struggle for a hobbyist photographer like you and I are.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you were a professional photographer where you've been commissioned to go out and shoot something specific, there's pressure. There's a lot of pressure there, too. So, I don't know which one would be worse.
I'm with you. I've thought about that often. It's like, if I ever were to, do this for a living, would it be as fun as it is now? Because would the pressure take over, and at that point, would it stop being as joyful? I don't know. I hope not, but I don't know. I would be willing to try just to see, but yeah, that's always in the back of your mind because. And I was with you one day. I don't know if you remember this or not. Sometimes I just get out into the pressure. I'm thinking about the shot, and then sometimes you look around you, and I need to do this more often and realize where you're at. There's been numerous times where I've been like, I want to get this shot, and then I calm down and look, and I realize, man, I'm in a gorgeous location. I need to just take a break and just look around and enjoy. If I'm not mistaken, me and you were together one morning photographing bear, and it just hit me all of a sudden that, man, look where we're at and everything. And I just, it's almost an overwhelming joy just comes over you with peace. And the only thing it don't happen often, but when I'm out in nature, it seems like it happens all the time. I get this overwhelming joy, especially when I'm not thinking about it or overthinking it.
Yeah, I think I know the moment you're talking about. It was a morning, and it was just a little drizzle.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the
That's
one?
it, yeah. The birds were chirping, and that just hit me. I was like, man, look where we're at. It's like, man.
I think we both had that feeling at the same time.
Yeah.
It was crazy just witnessing, God's creation right in front of you. And so I think we got a few pictures that day, but I think that even in that moment, if we didn't, it would have been okay.
It wouldn't have mattered. Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered one bit. It was like the rain had stopped. It wasn't raining hard, but when the rain stopped, the sun came out and the birds were chirping, and it just like everything was just like at peace. And those are moments right there that I live for. I love moments like that. And
And you don't forget them. And it's cool to have the image to remind you of it, but the feeling that goes along with that image is just awesome.
Yes, exactly.
So we have another photograph here. Now, this isn't a wildlife photograph. This is a landscape image. Where was this taken? And maybe tell us a little bit about capturing the shot.
This was taken in the Cohutta Wilderness. It's in North Georgia. It's right on the Tennessee line. It's where I actually worked when I was doing internship at the Forest Service. I worked there. In that particular overlook, I'd seen when I was working there years and years ago. And a mutual friend of mine decided, hey, let's get up and go shoot sunrise. He said, I think this will be a good shot if we go shoot sunrise. So I said, yeah, I know it's a gorgeous spot. Let's go see if it's worth shooting. And it's not an easy spot to get to. That's why it sort of stands out to me. It's not impossible to get to, but there's you got to get up early, pitch black, and you're walking in the middle of the forest. And we took a few shortcuts to get there even quicker. And when we got there, you got to climb down a cliff. We took a rope and just sort of went down this cliff and got on this big rock, and you can look over the river, and that's the Jacks River. And the Jacks River is known. The Cohutta Wilderness is known for the Jacks River. We're sitting there, and there's the fog over the river, and I just remember it was already gorgeous before the sun come up. It was just peaceful. We're sitting there talking, and I was like, man, I don't know if it'll be any count or not. When the sun comes up, we'll find out. Well, all of a sudden, it seemed like the sun came up out of nowhere. And when it did, that fog lit up just like it was on fire. And my buddy who was with me, his camera had died 30 seconds before that, and he was mad, trying to change his batteries. I happened to have everything set up, and I just hit the shutter. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is gorgeous. And it was, as soon as it was there, it was gone. The sun went on up, and it blew everything out. And it was like a 20-second window to get that shot, and I got it. And I got home, put it on the computer. I was speechless, and I said, "Man, this is awesome." It's one of those places I've grown up at. My dad used to take us when we were kids up there hiking, and it was just, I got a shot I thought really did the place justice, and that was, I guess, the best part of it. Is this is what the Cohutta Wilderness is, and it's just one of my favorites. Look, it's a good memory. Just that morning was. It's one of those mornings, again, where you just at peace. It's just like a peaceful time. And all the effort and everything. Just a cool story. So that's been numerous years ago, that picture has, and it still sticks out to me.
Well, I love the layers and the background that it has in it. See those mountains, and just fantastic. And like you said, again, that personal connection to that place, and you'd been there before, but you weren't a photographer at the time that you were there, and to be able to go back there and have that moment, just awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I agree.
So, wanted to ask you, like, I know that you and I both like shooting whitetail deer. We both like shooting bears. Is there another species that you really enjoy, or one that, like, you really hope to shoot someday?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot I'd really love to shoot someday.
Or even a location.
Tell you what, I can toot this down to 3 locations if that's all right with you. I have 3. I can't make it any.
Only 3.
I would love to go to Africa. I would love to go to Africa and shoot with the Serengeti. That's always been top of my bucket list, to shoot lions and all the animals that go with that ecosystem. That just would be the mecca to me of wildlife photography. I would also like to go to Alaska. That's always high on my list. I'd love to get pictures of brown bears fishing in Alaska and Katmai and some of these other places. And the third one's surprising. Not many people would probably list, but I would love to go to Brazil. I hope I pronounced it right, the Pantanal, where people get the jaguar images. I love what I see coming out of that place, the birds and the jaguar images and everything else. I would love to go down there and take a boat tour. Any 3 of those. I can't really list one over the other because all 3 of those are like, if somebody said, here's a bunch of money, go on one of them, it would take me a long time to figure out which one of those 3 I would do. So I really can't say which order, but any of those now.
Those are 3 good choices.
Yeah. I used to. I wouldn't have never put the Pantanal on there until recently, but seeing the images come out of there, jaguars are just cool animals, and I thought, man, that would be incredible to go see something that powerful. Just walk around them. I think it's on the riverbanks. They usually get most of the pictures. And I thought, man, that would be just a cool trip.
And I've been seeing some just awesome bird images, just so vibrant, and it'd be really neat to go and see some of those birds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, North America side of things, like I said, whitetail deer, black bear, elk. I love shooting all those things, and I'm hoping to shoot more, maybe out west a little bit more, grizzly bears, bison, and stuff like that. But that's to come, hopefully, in the short-term future.
Yeah, well, those are 3 great choices, and we'll hopefully get to some of those both someday soon.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, and then we'll kind of start to wrap this up. Social media. What's your take on what it has done, and what is it doing to wildlife photography? Good or bad?
Both good and bad. I think, honestly, I'm a product of social media. I come into, when I did photography, it's helped me promote myself. So I can't say it's all bad. But it's a flooded market, I believe, at this point. And I think that it's gotten people's expectations too high on, if I'm going to make it, I got to do these things. And not everybody lives in places where you can get some of these images. These people living around Yellowstone are going to get the bison images and the grizzly bear images. And it's something to thrive towards. But I think it's caused a lot of wildlife, human conflict with people trying to get those. And a lot of people using their phones, which you and I have seen a bunch in national parks we've been to and stuff, that expectation, if I can get my cell phone and I can take these same images these guys are taking with these big prime lenses and stuff, I think that's done a lot of harm more than it has good. But I do think at the same time it does a lot of good for awareness, conservation awareness. People can really put an agenda out there and show the issues going on around the world. So I'm kind of torn on that. It's kind of good and bad. I love social media for the most part. I use social media, but there is a lot of negatives, I think, that go, and I've seen firsthand a lot of negatives.
Yeah, I like your point about it gives false expectations. And, something that I've found recently, it's so easy to scroll, and I feel like there's so much out there anymore that I'm so unimpressed by everything.
There's that too. I didn't mention that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
an image that would have blown me away 10 years ago is, man, just you scroll right past it like it's nothing now sometimes, and you're completely right, yeah.
And I don't like that. I'm like you, like social media, I'm a product of that I have learned so much, and I appreciate the connections that I've made on social media. I appreciate the lessons that I've learned and the tutorials and, the expertise that people have shared. But I just find that I'm not impressed by things that I do or that other people are doing as much as I used to be, because it's so commonplace now. And I don't like that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's good things. Like the first time I ever saw you in the field, I recognized you from Instagram before, I was like, I know that guy from somewhere. And sure enough, it's from Instagram. So there is good things. I've made lots of friends through social media.
Absolutely.
But I'm like you. You get kind of numb to it after a while. You'll see an image that was just an incredible image, and you just sort of like, oh, it's okay. You scroll past it. And my own images, I'm like, oh, they're garbage compared to this other stuff sometimes. I get that mentality of, I got to do better, instead of just enjoying yourself and being happy. That's the thing. I think the expectation is ruining a lot of people's fun, if anything, doing photography. The cell phone people, I have no problem with somebody taking a picture of the cell phone, but I've seen so many people get right in for instance, a black bear. I've seen people getting right in the face of a black bear trying to get that incredible portrait, and they're holding a cell phone. And it does much more harm than it ever does good. And you're never going to get the same image somebody got with a 600 millimeter or something like that.
And it seems people lose their minds as soon as they enter a wildlife area. This isn't a zoo, and they lose their minds and think that they can get as close as can be, and it just certainly is not the case.
Yeah.
But that's enough said on that. We've all witnessed it, I'm sure. So, well, Joseph, I really appreciate you taking the time here to talk with us and to describe these images. They're all beautiful images, and I encourage you to go check out Joseph on social media. What's your Instagram handle?
Let me look. It's a good idea. I could tell you, but I don't want to tell you wrong.
Yeah.
Cooper Wildlife and Nature. And
no
my
underscores.
website, I have a website that's the link. Cooper_wildlife_and_nature.
Okay. So we'll have that on the screen here. And,
it'll be
we'll
easier
sure.
to just put on the screen. And I have a website that is linked on the Instagram. So please feel free to check out all the images. The 3 images I've shown are going to be on the website with a whole lot more.
Awesome. So those are available for purchase. And I know that in years past, this past year, you had a calendar, and you continue to do that. In fact, you can see a calendar back there. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've done those the last 2 years. I've really enjoyed doing those. I didn't know how much I would until I did one, and it was actually very enjoyable. Seeing people enjoy them and want them to put on their wall it's always a good feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and we hope to be doing more of these podcasts, so be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to check them out and leave a comment down below. Be sure to check out Joseph's photography. Phenomenal photographer. You won't be disappointed. He's a great guy to give a follow. Don't just scroll right through his stuff like we were talking about. Take your time and look and like. So until we see you again next time, take care.